Okay, so today we're going to talk about something called bivariate data, scatter plots, and correlation. Okay, it sounds complicated, but we're going to make it as easy as possible, I promise. Okay, so first thing you need to know, and you guys are just going to fill in the blanks here. A scatter plot is a graph of ordered pairs that represent data. That's fine. Each of the ordered pairs gives information about two variables. Okay, each of the ordered pairs gives information about two variables. And the study of two related variables is called bivariate data analysis. Okay, so basically a scatter plot is just when you have a bunch of dots, okay, a bunch of values or a bunch of data values on one graph. Okay, so it's not a full line, it's just a bunch of dots. Okay, listen, plotting the points from a bivariate data set on a scatter plot can show if there is an association between the two variables that is not easily seen in a table. Okay, so all we are doing today is just plotting data. Okay, just plotting data, so making points of data. And then we're going to see if there's something called a correlation between the data. Okay, so we're trying to figure out, are these things related or are they just random dots? Okay, so here, correlation. A scatter plot can show a trend or relationship between the two variables. This relationship is called an association or a correlation. Okay, this is showing either an association or something we call a correlation. The next thing that we're going to talk about is something called a trend line. Okay, the trend of the data is modeled by a straight line through the data points. And the trend line is used to describe the relationship shown in the graph. Okay, so all we're looking for here is looking at something called a trend line. Okay, so here, positive correlation. Okay, positive correlation. A positive correlation is when all of your dots seem to be going up. Okay, so here, which is the x-axis and which is the y-axis?
The y-axis is going up.
The y-axis is going up, okay? And you would say that the numbers are increasing this way, okay? The x-axis, the x numbers are also increasing, okay? So these are the x numbers, okay? If you were to draw a straight line that went about through the middle, okay? This is called the trend line. Okay, that's called the trend line. And the trend line is basically just one that goes about through the middle. Okay? It's not perfect, but about half the dots are above it, about half the dots are below it. So a trend line is just something that goes about through the middle. Here, if we were going to figure this out, okay, as the x values increase, okay, as the x values increase, the y values also increase. So here, as the x values increase or get bigger, as the x values get bigger, the y values also get bigger. Okay, that's called a positive correlation. So here, the points on this scatter plot go upward. Okay, they are increasing. These have, if you were going to talk about the slope of this line, would it be a positive slope, a negative slope, 0, or undefined? It would be a positive slope, okay? As one gets bigger, the other gets bigger. The next kind that we're going to talk about, guys, enough. If we need to get out PR cards and take them away, I have no problem with that. You guys are being really silly right now. Okay. The next one here. What would you say is happening with the y values here? Are they going up or down? The y values are decreasing as the x values are doing what? X values are increasing. Okay? So here, as the x values increase, the y values decrease. Okay? if you were going to draw a trend line here, you want about half of them above and half of them below. So the trend line here, what would you say? It's not negative, but the trend value is going downward. Okay, this one is going downward. So would you say this would have a positive, negative, zero, or undefined slope?
Negative.
This would have a negative slope. Okay, this would have a negative slope because it is going downward. Hold on, not exactly.
Wait, is all this, is this part of this too?
No.
It's
I
just
don't-
this front pages are notes for today?
Notes for today are just this front page, yes. Okay, hold on. Okay, so here, this is the X values. These are the Y values, okay? This one says this is no correlation, okay?
Sideward.
You can't draw one line that would go, that these all seem to be following, okay? So this is just data points. These are scattered, okay? And this one, the points show no association, okay? So they don't seem to have any trend, okay? They're not moving upwards, they're not moving downwards, these show no trend. Okay, so it's really important here that you guys understand the difference between positive correlation, negative correlation, and no correlation. Okay, it's going to be pretty important here on these because that's what most of your homework is going to be on today. Either a positive correlation, a negative correlation, or no correlation at all. Do we have any questions on what's the difference between them right now?
Can there be a side word?
Sideways correlation?
Yep.
No. There's no such thing as sideways correlation.
Thank
Say
you,
what?
Miss Karen.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, we're going to go over the other side as well, and then this will be it for notes, okay? So here we're going to look at creating scatter plots and describing the correlation. Okay, guys, let me be really clear here.
Sorry.
If I see anything else thrown across the room, it is going to result in you losing PR points. Dylan, Willie.
Yeah.
No more throwing things across the room.
Okay.
Thanks. Okay, here, example 1 says we're going to compare the numbers of pages in paperback books and the price of the books, okay? Basically, the number of pages is your X variable. The total price is your Y. So, what we want to do here is we want to create a graph and label the X-axis and the Y-axis. Okay, the X-axis and the Y-axis. X would represent what here?
Number of pages.
Number of pages. X represents number of pages. And Y represents what?
Total price.
Total price. X represents the number of pages. Y represents the total price. So what we're going to do here is we are going to graph the data from the table. Okay, so let's actually graph this data. First thing we want to do is label our axis. Okay, so this is the x-axis and it represents what? What should I write on this slide? Number of pages, right? So number of pages. And the y-axis represents what? Total price. So kind of turn it sideways, and this is total price. So we're basically going to graph these data points. Okay, so at 350 pages, it costs $2.25. So 350 pages, so in between 300 and 400, $2.25. So here, $2, and this would be $2.50 in between $2 and $3. So we want to go about right here. Okay, and you're just putting a dot. The next one, over 200, so at 200 pages, it's $1.75. So 200 pages, $1.75 would be right in between $1.50 and $2. Okay, and I want you guys to put all these data points in there. So you go ahead and do that. Put all the data points on your graph, please. So I did the first two. You guys are going to do the rest. And it's not going to be perfect, okay? So like 130 pages is going to be in between 100 and 150. So it doesn't have to be absolutely perfect. Just do the best that you can. Excuse you.
Excuse you.
450.
Dylan, why?
Stop, guys.
You said my name wrong.
Dylan, graph these, please.
Oh, I didn't know.
To graph all those data points. And then what do you think is the last thing we're going to do here? I'm going to draw a what?
Trend line?
Trend line.
Trend line.
Okay, so we are going to draw a trend line. Gentlemen, stop. And interpret the data. Okay, so the trend line just goes about through the middle. Okay, just do the best you can. Does not have to be perfect. Okay, so that's your trend line. Okay, draw a trend line that goes through the middle. So here, if we were going to interpret this data, okay, the trend line shows a what type of trend? Is it upward or is it downward trend? Shows an upward trend.
Positive.
That's fine. Therefore, the data represents a positive correlation. Positive correlation. As the number of pages does what? Is the number of pages increasing or decreasing? Increasing. As the number of pages increases, the total price of the book does what? Also increases. This means that the more pages in a book, the more money it costs. Okay, so this means that the more pages in a book, the more pages in a book, the more it costs. The more pages in a book, the more it costs. Okay, so that's what you're going to be working on today, is creating scatter plots and then interpreting the data. Anyone have a question on how I did that? We're going to do one more example and then we'll be done. Everyone good on that one?
Wait.
I'm sorry.
Can I your pictures?
Sorry. Okay, let's do the second one. Right here. First thing you want to do is label which one is which. So X and Y. So label X and Y. So create a graph and label the X-axis and the Y-axis. In this case, X would represent what? Number of hours watching TV. Okay? Number of hours watching TV.
0.
Okay, so label this. This is your X-axis. This is hours watching TV. And your Y-axis represents what? Hours spent outside. Okay, number of hours spent outside. Okay, so also label your Y-axis, hours spent outside. Okay, so label both of those. So, next thing you want to do is graph the data from the table. So you're going to graph all these data points. Notice that each of these are 0.5. Okay, so they go up by 0.5 for each one. I want you to graph all of those. So 2 hours watching TV, 1 hour spent outside. So over 2, up 1, that's 1 dot. I want you to label all of these. So graph all of these data points. Graph the data points. Dylan, graph the data points.
Don't grab your phone, son.
I'm just scratching my leg.
Okay, stop. once you've graphed all the data points, we want to draw a trend line and interpret the data. Okay, so draw a trend line and interpret the data. Just do the best that you can on the trend line, okay? It doesn't have to be perfect, but just draw a general kind of trend line here. Okay, here. This trend line shows a what kind of trend? Upward or downward?
Downward.
Downward trend.
Downward.
Okay. Therefore, the data represents a what kind of correlation?
Negative.
Negative correlation. So, you would say as the hours of TV watched does what? Are they increasing or decreasing?
Decrease.
Hours of TV is increasing as the hours of TV watched increases, the hours spent outside decreases. Okay, so what would that mean? This means that what? The more TV you watch, the less time you spend outside. Okay, so the more someone watches TV, the less time they spend outside. The less time they spend outside. The less time they spend outside. Okay, the more someone watches TV, the less time they spend outside. Okay, you guys do have homework for this. It is in your book. Okay, hold on. Okay,
We don't have a book.
hold on. I'm going to talk about it. Okay, so your homework here is posted on the board. It's going to be on page 671. You're doing numbers 1 through 3, 8 through 11, and 13 and 14. 1 through 3, 8 to 11, 13 and 14.
Are you showing?
Okay.
Wait.